Welcome to the Network Marketing Mindset Podcast, where you'll learn how to transform your mindset and achieve massive success in your network marketing business. Here's your host, business mindset coach, Deb Erickson.
Hey, welcome everyone to another episode of the Network Marketing Mindset Podcast with Deb Erickson. I am so excited that you're here today. We are going to talk everything mindset with an extraordinary woman. You are absolutely going to fall in love. More importantly, you're going to learn so much. So grab something to write with. But before we do, I want to just give a quick shout out. I want to shout out to one of our listeners who's gone into Apple Podcasts and actually left rated and reviewed. And so let me just give a little shout out. Looney Oil Lady. And I want to say thank you to her really quickly. Here's what she said. I'm new to the podcast. I already love it. Thanks for providing great value and content. I've shared this with my team as well. Keep rocking it, Deb. Hey, thanks for being such a loyal listener and sharing with your friends. So if you want a chance to get a shout out, make sure that you go to Apple Podcast and rate and review. You're especially going to want to rate and review this woman. So let me tell you a little bit about her. I'm going to introduce you to Tara Wilson. And let me just say this at the beginning. I met Tara about a year ago. And it was kind of like a friend introduced a friend. I did a Facebook Live, and somehow that got shared. And as I met Tara, I was blown away at the beginning. Right from the beginning, I got to tell you, she's an extraordinary leader. In fact, let me just tell you some of her credentials. She's been a network marketing professional for 13 years. Her team has sold over 220 million in gross sales. This woman knows how to lead in 16 different countries. But the thing you want to know most is that Tara is someone committed to growth, to development, to learning, to mastering her skills. She's been on stages around the globe. In fact, she was on my stage at Escape the Ordinary. She inspires, she delights. You guys are going to be blown away because her true passion is really helping people. Her bottom line core commitment is about making a difference for hungry entrepreneurs who really just want to find their way in this business and create life and lifestyle for their families. She will stop at nothing to get that done, to support the people on her team. And so you are going to absolutely love Tara Wilson. Tara, would you join me here? I'm going to share our screen. There you are, my dear. Fabulous to see you. Fabulous to see you. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Great to be here, Deb. Thank you so much for that amazing introduction. And I'm just honored to help and serve in any way I can today.
Well, our listeners always want to know your story, right? They want to know, how did you start there and end up, $1 million earner? How did you get on stages around the world? How did you get that group of people to follow you? How did you do it? Tell me the story.
Grit. I don't know. No. So I'll rewind back 13 years. I was working in wholesale mortgage. For those of you who are looking at this, I know you're recording this visually too. I keep this picture on my desk for those listening. It's a picture of my kids when they were 1 and 7. I have 3 children now, but at the time I only had 2. And I was working full time, 40 hours a week. My husband was working full time. And I guess, and for those of you who can see there behind me is my fancy degree from UC Berkeley in psychology. But I was living what I thought was the American dream, right? I had a little daughter, a little son. I was working. I had a great income. My husband and I made probably, $250,000 a year to combine. We had no credit card debt. We were putting money in our 401ks. But I just had this nudge in my heart that every time I had to drop off my kids, or every time that I would go into a Starbucks and I'd see all these moms at 10 a.m. and, drinking their lattes, and I was whisking in and out with my suit going to the next business meeting, I was always like, wow, that would be so nice to be a mom and to actually be a mom. And my breaking point was around the time I got introduced to network marketing, which I didn't know anything about until I actually got into it. Never knew anyone that was successful or, like you, Deb, or myself or anyone. And I went to pick up my 1-year-old, and my nanny, bless her heart, was so excited to tell me that she took her first steps. And maybe I was just in the wrong mood or I was tired, but it tore me apart. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. I just sat there in the car crying and apologizing. And I just kept thinking, what else am I going to miss? I wasn't able to work in my son's class as a volunteer, his kindergarten class, or I wasn't able to go to his baseball games if they were before 5. And I just thought that this was really not the life I wanted. And we really couldn't move because my son had a different father. My husband met me when I had a 3-year-old. And so I couldn't move. I couldn't move into an area. I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area, which we needed 2 incomes. So I was introduced to network marketing. And if it wasn't for family, so tip number 1, when people say, I don't want to bug my friends and family, that's literally the worst thing you can say to me. Because if it wasn't for my family's life wouldn't be blessed forever, because they had enough vision to share this with me. And it was a health company. I've always been in health and wellness. It's a passion of mine. So my sister said, hey, you're healthy. We were a healthy family. We worked out, we ate, you juiced, all that crap. I'm literally juicing right now. And she said, just at least order the product. So I did. And then she's like, come to this meeting. And so, if you're listening in the network marketing industry, you remember your first meeting, whether it was an online tool or a conference call, or this was an in-person meeting back in 2007, because there was no social media, there was no YouTube, there was no sending someone your link, there was no smartphones. Right. And I just saw potential. And these ladies were making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year within like a year or 2. And I was like, what? And so that was what opened my mind to just saying, okay, well, why not me? And I hit the ground running. I failed miserably. My first 3 months, I made $40 my first month after investing $500. And then I probably spent more than I made again the second month and the third month. And then something magic happened. And this is probably something that's really great. I started reading. The first book I read, Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life by Brian Tracy.
Yeah.
And it changed my life. And then I read Your First Year in Network Marketing, and then I listened to Jim Rohn's How to Build a Network Marketing Business. And that whet an appetite for insatiable self-development. And I just put myself all in, Deb, with all of my heart. And for those of you who are thinking in the beginning, maybe you're just starting, I was just dumb enough to think I could. I had childlike enthusiasm. I'm like, what do you mean there's rejection? What do you mean people call it a pyramid? What are you talking about? There's a great product, and if you sell it, you make money. And if you help other people sell it, you make money. What are you talking about? This is all and within 7 months, I quit my job. Within 8 months, I replaced my 6-figure income. Within 15 months, I tripled it. And I have been full-time since October 2007.
Wow. A couple things I just want to point out. Number 1, what I love about your story is that, people always think that the only selling point is, you want to up-level your income. We all talk time freedom, but I don't think people get it that it is a real pain, not being able to have choices around time and energy. The stuff you talked about is so big. And I think it's really important for people to remember that it's not always about money. Because people get scope locked, right? And they always want to sell the opportunity as a money opportunity, which it is, but that wasn't your pain. That's not why you looked at it.
No.
That was a benefit that came later. So that was number 1. Number 2, I love the piece of your story where you're talking about you being dumb enough, right? The truth is it's kind of that beginner luck, right? Where enthusiasm and passion will carry you so far. But here's the really important part about that is there is a point in time where there is a diminishing return to enthusiasm, blind, dumb luck enthusiasm, right? There's a point in time where your brain goes, wait a minute, right? And what I love about your story is that you were ahead of that curve. You got ahead of that point by jumping into learning and growth and development. And, people always come to me and they say, why is personal growth and development so important? I said, because your business is you, right? And you're the one that shows up every single day for your business. It's all surrounding you. So if you're not growing and developing, we have a problem here. But again, here's one more thing I love about your story is that you didn't just take the class. Just so many people think they're doing something by taking the class.
Mhm.
Right? They think they are advancing their business because they're in a class, but you went out and used it. You learned and then you used. You learned it and then you did. And I love that. So keep telling us the story. So you said in a matter of months, you had a 6-figure income. What was that part of it again? Say that part again.
Yeah. So it was about 7 months where I was starting to make around $8,000 to $10,000 a month. And within 15 months of starting, I was at $35,000 a month. And so here's what's crazy about that though. This was during 2008. So the economy was booming. It was great. And my former, I was in the mortgage and real estate. So a lot of my, contacts were in mortgage and real estate. And when the economy was great, well, what happened with 2008, 2009, I went all the way back down to a few $1,000s a month. And, my former job in wholesale mortgage, I was commissioned, but I was making about $12,000 to $15,000 a month. And I needed it for income. Plus I had given up my benefits and company card, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I kind of panicked. And then that company actually is not in existence today. So I got into another company, helped try to launch a pre-launch company. And that didn't really work out. But I was dedicated. I got it to a 6-figure income, but it just really never took off. And then I made a long-term decision and I got into another company for 5 years. And this is where I'll say that the mindset is, because you can get so far by yourself. Hard work and grit and tenacity and perseverance and passion. You can build a paycheck. But if you want to build a team, you have to learn how to duplicate yourself. You have to learn how to teach people. You have to learn how to handle, when they come to you and say, well, I just got rejected. Well, if you've never been rejected, you can't help someone get past that rejection. If you've never if you've never posted on Facebook, you've got to be a moral authority, right? You've got to walk the walk. So I would say that personal development, but more experience, helped me, because what I started doing is realizing that most people are busy, right? Especially when they're working and have children or have families or other commitments. So I started reading and then I started teaching. I would just give them little bite sizes. I would do it on conference calls. I had a daily power call where it was a half an hour, which if I read a lesson in like your book, Deb, I would be teaching them in a half an hour, give them that bite size. And we would literally have 1,000 to 2,000 people on my team a day getting on those calls. So I found that people liked personal development spoon-fed to them. So, my biggest advice to anyone in regards to personal development is give yourself, if you can't see this on my podcast, but for those of you who are watching Zoom, these are just some of my personal development books: leadership, speaking, goal setting, excuses, neuro programming. Deb's books are up there, everything you could possibly want to learn. I did that for myself, and that's why I think that I am where I am. But do what you can with the time you have. But if you want to get to really change your life status, you've got to not only change what's in your head, like Deb I were talking earlier, you've got to take action on it. So I didn't just read the book and think, oh, this is a great idea. I read a book about goal setting. I started setting goals. I read a book about self-discipline or atomic habits or whatever it was, and I put it into action. And that's probably the most important thing I can say is, my first, you remember Jim Rohn's CD, How to Build a Network Marketing Business. Now you can find it on YouTube. I remember getting that DVD. That was my first personal development DVD. And I listened to that probably 100 times.
I was over and over.
Over and always on. It was literally, there was no more driving around with work with radio. It was literally that on repeat. And then I went online, because again, this is before social media, you guys. There was no smartphone. You couldn't have just sent someone a link to YouTube because there was no YouTube. I remember going online and I bought 50 of them for $1 each. That was a big investment for me at that, like $50. And I gave them to my top 50 leaders. And I'm like, listen to this. So, and they did. And many of them that did kind of bought into that mindset that, long-term thinking, the birds, the sower and the seed, all that. If you've listened to it, it's great. So, but personal development and action and perseverance has been my biggest strengths, I'd say.
You know, I want to make comment about a couple things you just said. All of my stuff now, I'm moving into kind of a new level with a lot of the materials that I'm teaching as well. And I'm teaching everything in I guess I'd call it 3 levels: learn it, do it, become it. Right.
Yeah.
And the learn it side is the gathering, right? The do it is when you're practicing. It's kind of like a teacher teaching, right? When I was teaching, it's like we teach to mastery. You teach somebody and then you stand next to them and you practice and you give them feedback. And there's this process. And then pretty soon they just they just do it. They just know how. Right. And one of the fastest ways to master material is to teach it.
Yes. Yes.
It is.
Yes.
So
yes.
I
couldn't agree more.
You just understood it, right? Whether anybody ever taught you that or not, you just understood at some level that the fastest way for you to get mastery was to learn it and then put it in your own words, right? And share it out and teach it. And so the act of, and it is duplication, isn't it? But the act of teaching is an extraordinary next level leadership skill. It's extraordinary. So,
and the ability to extrapolate that and take it into your personal experience in something that that a lot of people in your team or your company are experiencing, and being able to get them to see it. Like when I came back from your event, Deb, I got on and I was teaching your stuff. And when I did, I had a deeper understanding for it. But yeah, my next 3 team calls after I was with you was your stuff, because it's so powerful. And then you get it at a deeper level when you understand it, when you teach it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell me, as you look back, because we've talked a lot of success here, but my people always want to know, okay, but where was the hard stuff? Where was the tough stuff? So tell me what you think. Yeah. What was some of the biggest challenges, the biggest places you got knocked down, the things you had to overcome? What was that?
So the biggest one was being a mom. And my why was to have more time with my children, and my new goals were taking away from my children, because I was still having to work 40 hours a week. And now I had to go out, because this is the dinosaur ages. We had to do in-person meetings. So what I did is I committed to 2 nights a week. And my husband at the time was playing a basketball league. And I said, hey, I'd really like it if you could give up your basketball league. Because if I'm gone 2 nights a week and you're gone 2 nights a week, what kind of family life are we going to have? So if you really believe in me, and he did without question. So my husband's always been such an extraordinary supporter. And, of course, 7 months later when I quit my job, he got to go back to basketball. But it was hard. And my mother, who's not with us anymore, she passed about 7.5 years ago. She was my biggest fan, but in the beginning, she didn't understand it, because she saw the income we were making and she knew we had a pretty decent life. And then she's like, old files, none of us knew anyone who had ever had any success in network marketing. It wasn't even part of our world. Like, we never even knew it existed. So she's like, why are you doing this? Are you that greedy? And I'm like, Mom, I'm not doing this to make more money. I'm doing this to have more time with the kids. And she's like, okay. And she was really disappointed with me for a couple months. And I was like, Mom, just be patient. Just be patient. And then, of course, when I quit my job, she's like, best decision ever, but it was, you're so brilliant, And my mom, until I died, was my biggest fan. And she watched my kids, because it got to the point where in 2011, 2012, I was traveling the world. Like I said, I built a lot of teams, and I built a team of 60,000 distributors and a few 100,000 customers in under 5 years. So you can only imagine how much I was traveling. And my mom was there before she passed away. And a few months before she passed, I was able to retire my husband, who's now since 2012. So September of 2012, so almost 8 years, he's been home full time. He did start a business, but after a few years, I'm like, you need to stop, because again, we did this to have more time, and now you're working all the time. So stop. So we just both work. He has his garden and he helps with the finances, and we have a good balance. But my kids, every time I had to drive an hour and a half to a meeting each way, and 3 people would show up or no one would show up, instead of being upset about it, I would just sit and work with the person and say, let's get out your list. Let's go. Let's talk about your why. Let's talk about your goals. And right. They're like, I'm sorry, like 2 people showed up. I'm like, they're the right 2 people. And I always made them feel good about it. And it was hard. It was, fitting it into the nooks and crannies of my life. I was trying to be a mom and cook dinner and have a 1-year-old and a 7-year-old with homework. And be a wife and a friend. It was a balancing act that it wasn't a balancing act. I just did what I could when I could. I probably didn't do my nails back then. My house was probably a little bit of a mess. My laundry wasn't always done. I hired a housekeeper. I just did whatever I could. But, the guilt. And then when I had my third child, when she was 18 months and my middle was 4 and my son was 10, I joined my last company, which was a really big, like I said, 300,000 people. That was really hard. Being a mom and being away from my kids, even though my husband and my mom were with them, was really hard as a mom. You always feel mom guilt. Even though dads can go off and travel for 20 days a month and no one cares, it's different with moms. So it wasn't only my own personal mom guilt. It was what my friends thought of me. It was what my sisters thought of me. It was what people in my church thought of me. It was what the moms at school thought of me. And then in social media, it was what people on social media thought of me. It was a lot to overcome and learn and know that this is my journey and this is my house and my family. And I know the relationships I have, and I know the boundaries that I have, and I know the communication that I have with my husband and my children, and I know the goals we have. And my children have always known what I do. They love it. They talk about it. My son's going to be a neurosurgeon. My other daughter wants to be a physical therapist. My little one wants to do what I do. So we have one hopeful, but we've always communicated. They know exactly what we do and why we do it. And so, of course, it's a people business. That's the good news. That's also the bad news. So there's always the ups and downs, the disappointments, the people quit, the people who go to another company and then they try to raid your team. I mean, there's so many things that I've gone up and down. But isn't there always, in any company, in any industry, in any business endeavor, isn't there always ups and downs? It's not just network marketing. It's real estate. My dad was a realtor for 40 years, a broker, up and down, feast or famine, crash, and then, plethora, abundance, it was always like that. So I'll tell you, there's nothing that fulfills my soul more than helping people get healthy, helping create a business, and helping the way they think about themselves and create real skills that can help them with or without network marketing. Like the person that I've become in the last 13 years is far more gold than any money that's in my bank account.
Right. That's powerful. That is powerful. So let me ask you this. I love your story. You have done more in a short period of time than most people do in a lifetime. And I would say this, it's like you seem to have unlimited confidence. You seem to have focus and clarity and intention and, this unstoppable nature. Did you have that always? Did you develop it? Where do you think some of that came from? Because, there's kind of like learned confidence and earned confidence and just I had it from the beginning confidence. How do you think you came to that?
I didn't have it from the beginning. I grew up very humble. My parents divorced when I was 5, and my father was a real estate broker. He did have a degree from San Francisco State, which I just found out or San Francisco University. I just found that out, like 82 years old, and I just found that out. I don't know why. I probably knew it growing up. But my mom and my stepdad were kind of jack of all trades, and we moved around a lot and didn't have much. There were times where we were on and off welfare. So we sometimes had to shop at the secondhand stores, which embarrassed me as a child. I remember my mom bought me a pair of jeans from the little stand on the side of the road, and we were teasing. And then I got home and I had those jeans and I refused to wear them, and how upset she was. Like little things like that. I mean, I was probably 9. I'll never forget that. Not having the new shoes, not having the new name brands. And so I started working at a young age. I started babysitting at 11 and 12 and 13. So I could buy myself the little name brands, and I could go to the outlets and, in the mall and buy myself stuff. And I had a paper out when I was 14. I guess I'm blessed and thankful and grateful for my humble beginnings, because it instilled a work ethic in me. I knew that if it was going to happen, it was going to be me. And, not everyone in the same family. They say in every family, one goes to Yale, one goes to jail. Well, I'm an honor student from Berkeley. My sister, who's a few years older than me, is a heroin addict. I don't know if she is still or not. I haven't talked to her in years. She just, what drug addicts do. So it was something fire inside that I was one of the youngest, and I just watched everybody I watched everybody get in trouble for their bad grades. So I started getting good grades. I watched them get in trouble for their bad behavior. So I started having good behavior. Birth order, I guess, was a blessing for me, because I watched them all get in trouble. So I'm like, I'm not going to do that. And I didn't have a lot of confidence growing up. everyone goes through that awkward stage. I wasn't real popular in high school. I was kind of the class clown, and I wasn't like homecoming court or anything like that. But I don't know. I went to Berkeley, and that kind of helped my confidence. Like, I knew I was smart, and I thought, well, maybe in high school being cool is cool, but when you're older, being smart's cool. I started learning like the theory that, Steve Jobs is a nerd, but he's cool,
Yeah. What I love about like this part of the story, again, I got to say, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, take a drink. But I'll tell you this is that from failure, from rejection, from the humbleness of the beginning, from lack, from resistance, from failure, from all of that, right, is the opportunity. It's the opportunity to birth something better and bigger and bolder. And you're right. Some people choose to kind of stay in that path. Inertia just holds them in, and others decide, right? You decided, I heard you say that, I just decided I was going to be different. So they decide, that's kind of your first step, but then it's what follows afterwards. So what I love about that is it sounds to me like you were reframing, you were using all these neural tools. You were reframing life as you move along. You were making decisions. You up-leveled, you chose. So I'm hearing like hard-earned awareness of what it takes, what's required to build a successful life and a successful identity and like you said, a work ethic and all that stuff. I just think it's extraordinary. The very few people kind of come to that by themselves. Do you think there were heroes in your life? Were there role models at all?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the things is I kind of decided like I don't want to be poor. I don't know where I got that. Maybe playing that little fortune game where you do the circle and then you're like BMW and you cross them out and you're left with like what you want. But I decided that I didn't like the way my parents lived. I didn't like being poor. I didn't like not having the fun stuff. And I didn't like not having the options and having the broken down car and having the old clothes. So I started changing the people I hung out with. Like in high school, probably the two people I was friends with were probably the ones that had the wealthiest parents in town. And I was happy that I was the fun friend that they loved and took me on their family vacations because I was the crazy one they always could have fun with, right? And so watching them and how they went, and one of them owned like literally half the town, and they just loved the way their family was, and they were very dedicated to their business, but also their children. And they had this beautiful house with the pool. And I just remember being so like, okay, well, their kid's going to go to college, so I better go to college. So, her and I went to college across town from each other in the Bay Area. She went to St. Mary's. I went to Berkeley. We used to go visit each other and, just being around that. And then, of course, getting in the working field. And then, of course, I got divorced and I was a single mom, and I was working at Restoration Hardware at 29 years old, making $10.50 an hour and typing appraisals for my stepbrother when I met my husband. And so I laugh. I'm like, we make more a month now than we made combined, my husband and I, when we met in 2003. And yeah. So
let me jump in again and tell you this, because your story is just full of great training. So another thing you're saying here, and I want everybody to really get it, is that even as a teenager, you figured out that you become like the people you hang out with. And you guys have all heard that, you're kind of the sum of the 5 people you hang out the most with. And you chose a brand new set of to surround yourself with new people that gave you a vision, it gave you intention. Here's why that is so important for everybody listening, that what you've got to be able to do is put yourself next to a Tara. You have to put yourself next to a Deb. You got to put yourself next to people that think bigger thoughts, that hold a bigger vision, that live a bigger life, right? You got to put yourself in that space, guys, because what it begins to literally shift your brain, right? Your brain has neuroplasticity, which means it's constantly shifting and changing. And who you hang out with, who you listen to, who you play with, who you admire, who you watch, that energy is literally changing your brain. And so I love what you're saying, Tara, because again, I will say it seems like you had an innate, you must be an old soul. You have this innate,
I am. I know I am.
you have this innate knowing of what path to follow next. It is a brilliant story, and it's so inspirational.
Well,
So,
I have to tell you, I did it one more time because my husband and I met in 2003 and we got engaged in 2004. And we moved to our condo that we ended up buying when I was in network marketing. We moved to the most expensive town around us. Literally like Katie Rodan and Christy Yamaguchi and all the athletes in the Bay Area. We lived in this tiny little town where there was $40 million houses. We put ourselves in a condo surrounded by millionaires every day. I didn't want to live in a nice apartment in a crappy town when I could live in a little apartment or a little condo we rented in an amazing town. I wanted to be surrounded by people who thought differently, who acted differently. And I wanted to keep up with the Joneses in terms of like, I wanted to be inspired by the Joneses. Like my friends, I was still, even in network marketing, $1 million earner, I was still one of the poorest of my friends, by the way.
I love this because it shows up everywhere. Like in our industry, it's like, this is why you go to convention. This is why you earn incentive trips. It's not so that you're on the beach. It's so that you are surrounded by $1 million earners on the beach. And this is why I remember it was funny after Escape the Ordinary last December, the gal that sat right next to you at that front table, you were sitting at the VIP table. She bought a VIP ticket and she said, I don't even have any idea how I made that happen or why I decided to do it. She said, I knew I had to sit at a table with Tara's, right? And she sat right next to you and she said it changed her life.
Oh,
right?
I remember her.
Because you guys partnered up on stuff and she got to talk to you and she got to hear you and she oozed in, right, all of the energy that was there at that table with some of those key top leaders. And she said the best money she's ever spent was to put herself in the proximity of positive, powerful, wealthy, abundant thinkers. So what you're saying here is really, really powerful, but I just want everybody to hear it and say, ask yourself this question, what can I do today without moving, right? Without going out and buying something, what can I do right here, right today to choose to be in the presence of or listen to, right, top level producers and people who are successful in their thinking bigger thoughts and they're doing, right, they're doing amazing things. So you guys have got to put yourself in the place where you can kind of just sit next to a Tara. You just got to sit next to a Tara Wilson and you just got to soak it up and you got to ask questions. So what I always tell people is don't talk and try to impress someone else with your knowledge, but ask questions. How do you do this? Why are you doing that? How did you change? What was important? Because questions open up a conversation where the meat is. It's where the juice is, right? Stop talking and listen. Ask questions and listen, because that's where the value is, which is, of course, the base of our podcast here is to let you talk. So we're almost out of time. I could do this all day long. This was so much fun. But I want to ask you a really important question. If you were starting all over again, and let's say your list was destroyed, so you had nobody from the old companies to go back to, and you had to start from scratch today, because there's a lot of people listening to this, they feel like that's where they are, right? They're starting at zero. So if you had to start all over again at zero, what's the one most important thing you would do?
Well, aside from getting your mindset straight and thinking that you got to decide that you want to be a professional networker, is just up level yourself. Go and be confident about marketing yourself and what you're doing. You know what I mean? If you're not willing to talk to every human being without fail, young, old, male, female, from this country or not, if you're not proud to talk about your products or services to every human being without cherry picking and without prejudging, you're not in the right place. So I'm so confident in what I do that it's no longer about me. It's about the mission. I would just say start with a mission and like a goal in mind. There's no end in mind because there is no end. Like start with the future in mind. Like,
right.
You have this mission, have a vision of what you want to do, and then look to connect with the people that are aligned with that vision. And you won't even need a list because again, you'll attract your vibe and be a person of value. And being a person of value, the reason I feel like I'm a person of value is not just my 13 years experiences, but the endless seminars and investment into myself through John Maxwell and Tony Robbins and yourself and all these other incredible people, and surrounding yourself with good, seek mentorship, seek mentorship and, be willing to pay the price and, be urgent in your actions and patient in your results, but get on a path of personal development. One thing I do every time I meet top earners around the world, especially ones that are stacks much bigger than mine, is I ask them, what's the one book that made the biggest impact on your business? And I write it down and I go order it. And I usually have it by the time I get home from the seminar or from the event, and I read it and then I share it.
Wow. So be urgent in your action and patient with the results. That is brilliant. That is brilliant. Is that yours?
I don't know. I heard it. I was thinking about it. Probably heard it somewhere.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Tara, thank you so much for taking time today to share your wisdom and your vision and your story, with our listeners. I just, you have to know that I deeply respect you. I adore what you do. I love your charisma, but your character. You've got the whole package, and I so appreciate you in the world. You make us proud to be network marketers. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It was my honor, Deb. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
You're doing amazing things for our industry all over. So we are in gratitude for you.
Thanks. All right. Thanks everybody for being here. Make sure you go to Apple Podcast and rate and review, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
You've been listening to the Network Marketing Mindset Podcast with Deb Erickson. To learn more about Deb's business mindset coaching, classes, memberships, and leadership programs, visit us at ICANinstitute.com. And for free weekly tips and techniques to help you develop and grow your business, join our Facebook community today at facebook.com/groups/network marketing mindset with Deb.